Hi guys, and welcome to something new that I'm going to be doing, and it's Champions League content. So what I'm going to be doing is predicting each table, each little group, how they finish, and I'm not going to go into any more depth than that because obviously the rest of the tournament, the knockout stages, are done by a draw, so I can't really call anything as I'm not going to know what games are coming up. But I'm just going to cover the group stages for now and what I think is going to happen in them. So let's get into my predictions. So starting off with Group A, which contains Man City, PSG, Red Bull Leipzig and Club Brugge. Now, we're going to go from back to front. So starting off with the team I think in fourth place, it's Club Brugge. Now, fair play to them. Every year that the Champions League rolls around, they're in it. So they're consistently getting into it. But I just think they've been drawn possibly the toughest group, as the other three are so much better than them. So I think they'll be lucky to come out with a win in this group. I don't think they will get a win, but they might not even get a point. But fair play to them, as I say, for being here, but they will struggle to get anywhere other than fourth. Moving into third place, I've got Red Bull Leipzig. Now, although last season they did manage to qualify in a group that had PSG and Man United, I just don't think they're strong enough to go against PSG and Man City. Leipzig, they've lost Nagelsmann, Sabitzer and Upamecano all to Bayern Munich, and Konate has also joined Liverpool. So they've lost big chunks of their squad. And they are good at bringing younger players through, but I think with those players missing, plus Nagelsmann's a very good manager, they're just not going to have enough to get into those top two and progress. But I'm sure they will finish third and have a pretty decent run in the Europa League, as they obviously are a very good side. Moving into second place, and this is a toss of a coin really. These two sides, probably the two strongest sides in the competition for me. But in second, I've got Man City. Now, Man City haven't done much business, and that's what separated these two teams for me. They obviously signed Jack Grealish, 100 million, big transfer. Was it necessary? Probably not. They've got plenty of players who are capable of what Grealish is capable, apart from Grealish will go down a bit more and win you a few more free kicks. So I don't really think they've improved, and they needed a striker and they haven't got it. So they can score 5 goals in the league against Norwich, against Arsenal, but when it comes to the bigger teams, I think they're going to struggle this season. I can't see them picking many points up in the league against the bigger teams because they all have a strong striker, and I don't think they're going to be able to get the better of PSG here. So I've got them in second, which obviously means in first place, I've got PSG. Now, they've made a lot of signings. They've brought in Donnarumma, Messi, Wijnaldum, all on free transfers. Brilliant transfers, great players to bring through. And then to top it all off, they've also got Sergio Ramos for that defensive reinforcement. Then they also spent roughly about 50-60 million on Hakimi, who is, for me, he's one of the best attacking right backs in the world. He's still only young, he's played with some crazy players already, and he is only going to get better. I think he's going to have a really good tournament. And PSG, seasons ago, they've been called bottlers over the last few years. Yes, they've spent a lot of money. They've got an absolute super team and probably should have done better in other tournaments. But there's a bit of a trend going now because they're getting further and further as the years go by. 3 years ago, they weren't doing much. Then they got to a final. Then last year, they got to a semi-final and ended up getting knocked out. But I think they're very strong, and I think they're going to top the group. Another thing I want to do is top scorer and top assister in each group. So my top scorer, I'm going for Mbappe. I think Man City get goals from all over the pitch, so I don't think they'll get top scorer. And with Mbappe playing up front, it only makes sense. Mbappe as top scorer. For top assister, It was a bit of a toss-up because Messi, everyone knows how good Messi is at scoring, assisting, he can do everything. But I really like the look of Hakimi as well. He's very attacking. He does get quite a few assists for a right wing back. But I've got to go for Messi. Play it safe. He probably will end up getting most assists and most goals, knowing Messi. So, top scorer Mbappe, top assister Messi. And that sums up Group A. Let's move on to Group B now. So, in Group B, it's Atletico Madrid, Liverpool, Porto and AC Milan. And fourth place for me is Porto. They've got exciting attacking players. The wingers are good. They've got Corona, they've got Otavio, and they've got Diaz. And they're all very good attacking players. I'm sure they do well in a different group, but they've got a difficult group with a lot of tight teams, and I don't think they're going to be able to break people down too well. And that's why I've got Porto in fourth. In third place, I went for AC Milan. Now, they've signed Tomori and Giroud from Chelsea, so a bit of old, a bit of young. And Giroud is a great striker at like any sort of level. He's just a very underrated player. I think everyone knows it, which means is he really underrated? But he still is. And they've also got Ibrahimovic, so they've got some very experienced strikers. Then they've got Rebic and Rafael Leao, very, younger strikers, a bit more raw. And they've lost Donnarumma, which is a big thing. I think if they still had Donnarumma, they might have a chance of sneaking into the top two. But they've now got Mike Maignan, who they signed from Lille. And I'm sure he's a good goalie. He's sort of similar calibre. He's a young goalkeeper in regards to how long their careers last. But I don't think they've got enough to get into the top two. I think the top two are pretty strong in this group. So I've got AC Milan in third. In second place, I've got Atletico Madrid. Now, Atletico, they've signed Rodrigo de Paul, which is a good signing. Matthias Cunha from Hertha Berlin, another good signing. And they've managed to get Griezmann back from Barcelona on a loan deal, which is absolutely awful from Barcelona, but everyone knows Barcelona's business is terrible. They've ended up buying Griezmann for over 100 million and then getting rid of him on loan to the club that they bought him from, and they don't really want him. But Atletico Madrid, that's pretty good business considering they just won the league. A lot of teams don't seem to strengthen that much after they've just won the league. But they've got good form in La Liga as well so far this season. They've started well, and they're just looking like a very good team all round. Like a sort of era went around at Atletico Madrid and it looked like it was going to end, but they've sort of brought through more players and they've somehow got better. So with this, it's sort of a toss-up again. First and second could be either way round, but I've got Atletico Madrid in second, which means in first place I went for Liverpool. Now, they've only really signed Konate, which is good. They needed defensive reinforcement. Last season, obviously, they had all the injuries to centre-backs. Van Dijk, Matip, Gomez, all now fit. Add Konate to that. You've got four very good centre-backs there. So, they've added that. Good. Did they need a bit more reinforcement in midfield? Probably. Attackingly, are they all gelling together? I'm not too sure. But at the end of the day, they've still got Salah, Firmino, Mane and Jota, who looks like he's in there ahead of Firmino at the moment as a front line, and that's good enough to win this group. So for that reason, I've got Liverpool in first place. Now for the top scorer in this group, I went for Mohamed Salah. Last season, he was the one player for Liverpool who they could rely on. When everyone else was underperforming up front, he was getting all the goals. So I have to go for Mo Salah, to be fair. And as the assister, I wasn't sure whether to go for a Liverpool player, but I feel like assists come from a lot of different places. So Alexander-Arnold was a bit of a shout, but I don't know how many assists he's going to get. So I went for an Atletico Madrid player instead. And I went for Yannick Carrasco. He's explosive winger, and he does get assists. He always gets very far forward and in the box. So I think he's a pretty decent shout. I think Atletico's top assister will be Carrasco. It's just whether in the whole group it's Carrasco. But yeah, I went for Salah as the top scorer and Carrasco as the top assister. That's it for Group B. Let's move on to Group C. So, Group C is the group between Sporting CP, Ajax, Borussia Dortmund and Besiktas. And in fourth place, I've went for Besiktas. Now, I think they might be able to pick up maybe draws against Ajax and Sporting CP. Maybe one draw, maybe two. But I don't think they're going to win any games here, which is key. You have to win games to progress through the group. And you have to win games to not finish last as well. So, I've got them in last. Although they have got Batshuayi, who, you never know, he was signed by Chelsea a very long time ago, as he was seen as, you know, a good potential striker for the future. So maybe he'll be looking to get his career back on track there, and he could do very well. But Besiktas in fourth for me. In third place, I've got Sporting CP, but I think them and Ajax are both going to be fighting for that second place, and it's going to be very tight. I think there'll only probably be a point in this battle between them. Sporting CP, they won the Portuguese league last year for the first time in a very long time. They've got some exciting players. They've got a lot of young players. They've got Goncalves, who is a very good player and up and coming. He could be a very good player in the future, and I wouldn't be surprised if he moved to the Premier League soon. But I just don't think they've got enough to edge Ajax, because Ajax have experience in this competition, and that's the reason I've put Ajax above them. So second place, as I say, is Ajax, and it's down to their experience in the Champions League. A few seasons ago, got to the semi-final, nearly in the final, apart from that crazy Lucas Moura hat-trick that pulled a 3-0 deficit back to 3-3. So I just think they've got that sort of that knack in the Champions League. They will find a way to get through this group. They've got a lot of experienced players, but they've also mixed it with young players. Ajax's academy is fantastic. Some of the best players in the world, or the best Dutch players in the world anyway, come from this Ajax academy. And I'm pretty sure we'll see quite a few of them feature. They've also got a very good front line. Anthony, Neres and Sebastian Haller, who scores a lot of goals for Ajax since he's moved there from West Ham. So I've got them in second place. Could finish third, won't finish first. So second place for me. Which means in first place, I've got Borussia Dortmund. And I think they have a pretty easy group. I think they'll comfortably be first. They've obviously lost Sancho, which is a big loss for them. We haven't quite seen the best of him at Man U so far, but it will take him time to adapt. But they've replaced him with Daniel Marlon from PSV, who, well, I thought he was a striker, but it looks like they're going to try and shift him out onto the wing and play him there in Sancho's position, which will be interesting to see. And I think it'll be good to have a Champions League group like this for him to sort of get into it. If he was with all the big European names, he might struggle. But being in the group that he is, they'll get plenty of chances and they'll probably be 2 or 3-0 up anyway. So, you know, he can show what he's about then. And Jude Bellingham in midfield, he's an absolutely brilliant player. Obviously, I'm a Blues fan, so I'm going to say that. But everyone's been able to see it for England recently and Dortmund in the Champions League last season. Haaland is a great player. He's probably going to move at the end of this season. He's got that release clause in his contract. And I wouldn't be surprised if he got in between 8 and 10 goals in this group. And he'll probably get a hat-trick against one of the teams because he's just that good. He's probably the best young striker at finishing in the world. And, well, he's got the world at his feet, hasn't he? He could go to any club at the end of the season. And he's just really going to carry Dortmund through this group. And if they get anywhere in the competition, it'll be down to him. Because defensively, they haven't been great over the past few seasons and they still don't seem great. But in attack, they are full of goals. Top scorer, Haaland. I've just said he'll get 8 to 10 goals. So Haaland is the top scorer for me. And for assists, I think it's got to be a Dortmund player. And I've been seeing Jude Bellingham sneak further forward and forward every time I see him for Dortmund. So I'm going for Bellingham to be top assister just because I'd love to see it. Probably a bit biased, probably won't happen, but it'd be great if it did. So Haaland as top scorer and Bellingham as top assister. That's it for Group C. Let's see what I've put for Group D. So moving on to Group D, and it's the group that's got Inter Milan, Real Madrid, Shakhtar Donetsk and FC Sheriff. Now, 4th place, I think this will be pretty obvious to a lot of people. I've got Sheriff. Now, fair play to them for getting here. They're the first ever Moldovan team to reach the group stage of the Champions League, which is a very big achievement. And I think they'll just enjoy being here. They'll enjoy the experience of playing at all these different grounds and in these massive games that are televised. So it's good for them and it's good for Moldovan football. So fair play to them. But I think 4th place is what's going to happen. I can't see them getting any points, to be honest, because they're in a difficult group. But Sheriff in 4th. Moving into 3rd, and I've got Shakhtar Donetsk. Now this group's strange, as Shakhtar, Inter Milan and Real Madrid were all in the same group last season, but joined by Borussia Mönchengladbach. So it's a bit of a strange draw that's happened, but they've got each other again. Shakhtar, they've got a lot of exciting Brazilian players. If you look at their squad, it's pretty much Ukrainian and Brazilian players. But in attack, they've got a lot of Brazilian players that look like they're going to want to make a name for themselves. So I think that will help them out. They could pick up a few points. I know they did very well against Real Madrid last season in this group. But I think 3rd for them is probably a pretty safe bet, and they'll go into the Europa League and probably do all right in there. Moving into 2nd, and I've got Inter Milan, and this is just due to their financial struggles that's made them lose Antonio Conte, who led them to that Serie A title last season. They've lost Lukaku and they've lost Hakimi, which are just really, really bad for Inter Milan. They will struggle without them. But I think the business that they've done to replace them has been very good for a team that's in such bad financial shape. I mean, Lukaku, obviously, they got 100 mil for. Hakimi, about 60. So they've raised a lot of money there. But they've brought in Denzel Dumfries, who had a very good tournament in the Euros for Netherlands before they got knocked out at right back. And then they've got Dzeko and Calhanoglu, both on frees, which is great business. Calhanoglu joining from AC Milan, which is obviously quite controversial, but he is a brilliant player on his day, and he's just so creative, and everyone will know he's a very good free kick taker. I mean, all you got to do is look at FIFA if you're into it, and everyone knows he's a very good free kick taker on there. Dzeko brings experience up front. He's sort of like a Giroud. He's very underrated, and he'll do very well for them, I'm sure about that. So, 2nd place, I went for Inter Milan. They could possibly get 1st, depending on how Real Madrid do in the group stages, because they didn't do great last season. But I think 2nd place is probably where they'll be. Which means in 1st, I've got Real Madrid, and they've lost Ramos, Varane. They're 2 key centre-backs, which is very, very difficult for them. They've signed Alaba to go in that place. So they've got one replacement, but they haven't replaced the other. They've also brought in Camavinga, who's a very exciting young player. He's one of the hottest names in football at the moment, as everyone wanted him. But Real Madrid have ended up getting him, and he will be one for the future, definitely. They've already got Casemiro, Kroos and Modric, obviously, in that midfield, which is pretty hard to get into. But Camavinga has a lot of good teachers there. So I think he'll be great in the future, and I think Real Madrid will top this group. Now on to my top scorer, and I've got Karim Benzema, and it's not really surprising. If you win the group, you're probably going to have the top scorer. Tends to be that way, and Benzema is just such a great striker. I think Dzeko also has a chance, but I just think Benzema, Real Madrid, they'll score too many goals. For assists, my top assister is Calhanoglu. As I said, he's very creative and he's just full of assists. He's so good. So I think he'll get the most assists. So top scorer, Benzema, and top assister, Calhanoglu. That's it for Group D. Let's move on to Group E. So moving on to Group E, and it's Bayern Munich, Barcelona, Benfica, and Dynamo Kiev. Now, fourth place in this one for me is Dynamo Kiev. To be honest, I don't really know too much about them. They're from the Ukrainian league with Shakhtar, and they might get something against Benfica, but Barcelona and Bayern Munich are going to be too strong for them. So for that reason, I've got them in fourth. Moving on to third, it's Benfica, and they're a good, again, Portuguese team with a lot of young players. They've got Darwin Núñez up front, who I'm quite excited to see play, but I don't think they've got enough to break into the top two, and I think they'll do well when they get third and get into the Europa League. Second place, and I've got Barcelona, and they've signed Depay, who for me is one of the most underrated players in the world. He's so good. He's carried Lyon for such a long time since moving there. Every time he plays for Netherlands, he's the best player on the pitch, and he carries them as well. So he's a very good player to bring in. But they've lost Messi, obviously, and Messi is Mr. Barcelona. He's been there for so long. It's so strange to see him not there, and no one really knows how they're going to do now because he was carrying them for so long. They've also lost Griezmann, which is another failed piece of business considering they've got rid of him on a loan and they don't really want him. And a really strange one, they've brought in Sergio Aguero, and I know in his prime he was a great player, but he's so injury prone and he barely got a game for Man City last season. He's never really fit. And it's so strange after everything that happened with Suarez at Barcelona that they got rid of him, lost the La Liga title because Atletico won it last season, and then decided to bring in Aguero. I'm not too sure about that one, but I don't think they'll really challenge Bayern, but I don't think they'll be challenged by any of the other teams. So I've got them in second place, which obviously means in first place, Bayern Munich, and I think this was probably the easiest group to call for me. Bayern Munich, a very strong team. They're always brilliant in the group stages. Lewandowski scores a ridiculous amount of goals in this competition all the time. So, yeah, I've got them first. Top scorer, Lewandowski, obviously. And top assister, I was torn between Bayern players, Thomas Muller, Serge Gnabry. They were my two. Kimmich maybe snuck in there, but he's a bit further back, so he might not get as many assists. And I went for Gnabry out of the two. I know Muller is very good at setting people up, but I'm a bit worried about his game time. I'm not sure if he's going to play all the matches, whereas Gnabry will play all the matches as long as he's fit. So I've got Gnabry as my top assister. That's it for Group E. Let's move on to Group F. So for Group F, is the group that have got Villarreal, Man United, Atalanta and Young Boys. And in fourth place, it's Young Boys. Now, they'll be glad to be back in the Champions League. They haven't been here for a long time. But I just don't think they've got a good enough squad to compete with the other teams. So, fourth place for me. Moving into third, and it's last season's Europa League winners, Villarreal. And it's strange because obviously they won the Europa League, got here. No one really expected them to win the Europa League. But they beat Man United in the final. They're in the Champions League. Emery's the manager. They've got Moreno, who scored an absolute shed load of goals last season for them. He scored the majority of their goals, so he's a very good player to have. But I just think Atalanta's a bit stronger. The squad's a bit stronger. And it was between them two. It's very tight who's going to finish second and who third. But I think Villarreal will just miss out and finish in third. But I think they'll go far in the Europa League if they do finish third, because Emery's the manager and it just seems to be in his DNA that he can get Europa League finals constantly and win them. So I wouldn't be surprised to see them go far in the Europa League if they finish third. Into second place, Atalanta. As I said, it's tight between the two, but I think Atalanta just have a better squad. So I've got them in second. I don't really have too much to say about them, but they've got Zapata, they've got Ilicic, and they're good strikers. They know what they're doing and they will get the job done against Young Boys and Villarreal. So Atalanta in second, and obviously that means Man United in first. I think they would have finished first in this group anyway if they didn't have Ronaldo, but they've brought in Ronaldo, and Messi, we were saying, was Mr. Barcelona. Ronaldo is Mr. Champions League. In this competition, he's got the majority of goal scoring records. He's incredible in it, and I think he's going to have a lot of fun in this group because there's a lot of goals here for him. So, top goal scorer, I've went for Ronaldo. Pretty obvious answer again, as I think a lot of the top goal scorer ones have been. For assists, I'm basing this off the way he started in the league, because I've always thought he's such a great player, but he wasn't getting in amongst the goals much or setting them up. But this season, he started brilliantly with assists, and it's Paul Pogba. So, Ronaldo top scorer, Pogba as the top assister. That's it for Group F. Let's move in to Group G. So, on to Group G, and it contains Lille, Sevilla, Wolfsburg and Red Bull Salzburg. And in fourth place, I'm going for Salzburg. Now, they're an Austrian team. They're obviously a Red Bull team, so they're a feeder club to Leipzig. And they are a breeding ground for a lot of brilliant young players. Recently, Patson Daka has left there to go to Leicester. Haaland came from there. Hwang Hee-chan, Minamino. They've got a lot of players that have went through the ranks at Salzburg and now left. So I'm excited to see a lot of young players sort of proving themselves at this level. And I think they're in a bit of a battle with the team that's in third, but I don't think they'll finish any higher than that. So I've got them in fourth. In third place, I've went for Lille. And it may come as a surprise, as they were the French League champions last season, but they weren't very good in the Europa League when they were there last season, and it's just put me off them a bit and made me think I don't think they can do it on the European stage. Now, they haven't started the season well either. Their form is pretty poor, so everything sort of points towards them not doing great in this group, and that's why I've got them in third. In second place, and this could be a surprise as they've probably got the strongest squad in this group, but I've went for Sevilla. Now, Sevilla, obviously they've got some great players, and they do well every season when they tend to get into the Europa League. Because I know for 3 seasons in a row they finished third in their Champions League group, got into the Europa League and won it. It was crazy. But although they've got the strong squad, I think they'll get through, but I don't think they'll win the group, and I really don't know why. Something's telling me they won't. So Sevilla in second, which means in first place I've went for Wolfsburg. And again, this group is very surprising. I feel like it could be flipped upside down and still could be correct. It's probably the toughest one to call. But Wolfsburg, they've started the season well, 4 wins out of 4 in the Bundesliga, and they've got some young players who are going to want to prove themselves, and I think they're just going to be more hungry. Sevilla are used to getting to the Champions League and doing okay, but Wolfsburg, there's something about them that's just making me think they're gonna do very well in this group. They haven't been in the Champions League for a while. On their return, they're gonna do well, and I'm putting Wolfsburg first. Now for top scorer, I've went for Sevilla's En-Nesyri. He got quite a lot of goals last season. Good striker, still pretty young, and I think he'll get the goals for them again this season. So En-Nesyri is my top goal scorer. And for assists, I really struggled. And I ended up coming to Baku from Wolfsburg. Was a right back / right winger, plays anywhere on the right, and attacking player. I think he'll get some assists. Whether he gets top assists, probably not. But I've got him as my top assister. That's it for Group G. Let's see what I've put for Group H. So, on to Group H, where we've got the Champions League winners from last season, Chelsea, Juventus, Zenit, and Malmo. And in 4th place, I've got Malmo. Now, I don't know too much about them. I know that they knocked Rangers out in the qualification for the tournament, and had a player sent off in that match and still managed to get through. So, fair play to them for getting here. They might get something against Zenit. I can't see them getting anything against the others, and that's why I've put them 4th. In 3rd place, I went for Zenit St. Petersburg. Now, if you look at their attacking line, they've got the ex-Barcelona player Malcolm, Joba, and Azmoun, and it's a pretty good front line. They've got goals there, but they're in a difficult group. Chelsea and Juventus, probably too much quality for Zenit, and I think they will get 3rd. They'll get into the Europa League, but I don't think they've got enough to challenge the top 2. Although, with the team in 2nd place's current form, who knows? Which leads me to 2nd place, which is obviously Juventus. Now, their form, start of this season, has been pretty poor. Well, in fact, it's been terrible. They have barely picked up any points in the league, and they're really struggling without Ronaldo. Whether they'll struggle in this group, I'm not so sure, because I think they obviously have more quality than Zenit and Malmo, so they should finish 2nd quite comfortably. But if they get through that, I can't see them getting any further than the round of 16 in this competition, because whoever they draw will probably be in a better position than them. They've signed Locatelli, who was a very good player for Italy in the Euros, and that's a pretty good signing. I've always looked at Juventus over the past few years and thought they don't really have a very good midfield. A lot their wing backs are old, their centre backs are old, to be fair, and their midfield isn't very strong compared to some of the other top European teams. So Locatelli is a very good signing for them, and I'm sure he'll do well. But I can't see them finishing 1st, so I've got them in 2nd. Which obviously means in 1st place, I've got last year's Champions League winners, Chelsea. And they won the Champions League last year without Lukaku, and now that they've got him, I think they've got a pretty good chance of going far again. Now, they're so solid defensively. They've started the Premier League really well this season, and they're just really good in sort of knockout games, and I'm sure they'll definitely get through to the knockouts. So Chelsea 1st for me, too strong, probably one of the best teams in the competition, and for me this group was probably the easiest. I think it's pretty straightforward to say who's going to go where. Now, moving on to top scorer, and I've went for Lukaku. Obviously, he's a quality striker. He gets tons of goals, and against Zenit and Malmo, I can see him having a field day. For assists, I went for Kai Havertz, as I think he's going to have a bit more of a breakout year this year. I know he struggled at the start of last year until Thomas Tuchel came in, and I'm sure he'll sort of progress this year. Obviously, he got the Champions League winning goal last season in that 1-0 win over Man City, and I think that's really going to push him on in his Chelsea career. So, top assists, Havertz. I'd also like to shout out that there's a little battle in this group. Who's going to be the top offside goal scorer? Will it be Werner or will it be Morata? Who knows? If Werner gets game time, maybe, but probably Morata for offside goals. And that's it for my predictions. So there's the Champions League group stage predictions. I would move on to later on in the knockout stages, but obviously with the Champions League, it's a draw, so anything could really happen. And if I don't know who's playing, I can't say who's going to win. If I was to go for a few teams to watch in the tournament, I think PSG and Man City are there, and Chelsea, Man United, I like the look of them as well. Maybe as a bit of a outside shout, Dortmund, but defensively, are they strong enough? I'm not too sure. And then you've obviously got Bayern Munich, who they can win any game on their day. It's just whether it's their day. So that's it. They're my predictions. Let me know in the comments what you agree with, what you disagree with. Get your predictions in the comments. Please like the video, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more Champions League content.